Hey, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I love talking about feelings and thoughts with money. I think people don't realize how much that impacts how they manage money. So I want to start off with asking you, how does the way a person thinks and feels about money impact their actions or inactions that they take with their financial decisions?
It impacts it in every way you could possibly imagine. um, that's that's the tricky part, and I don't know that that's a bad thing. I also want to point that out that like a good friend of mine, I can't remember who actually said this, but so there is the I think therefore I am, but this has later been rethought out by some smart people who, again, I wish I could think of who actually says this. But as humans, a better way is to think is to say I feel, therefore I am, because we are feeling machines more so than we are particularly well equipped thinking machines. And now with the rise of AI, that becomes even more obvious, perhaps. But I say that to bring out that being a person that feels, feeling emotions, that this is a really important part of our existence. And emotions should not be removed from decision making. However, it can't always be just one or the other. Like we can't ever be fully logical. We have times where it feels like we're fully emotional. But really, it's that balance between the two. People don't necessarily lie on their deathbed and say, hey, yeah, I'm so glad that every decision I made in my life was made from a purely logical stance with no emotion involved. Most people wouldn't even get anything done. I mean, you mentioned inaction. If there was no emotion to like drive us forward, whether that was stress or joy or fear, there wouldn't be much that gets done anyway. So it's not necessarily a goal to make decisions without emotion, but to more so understand emotion, be able to roll with or work with the emotion, in addition to the logic. These things are not meant to be mutually exclusive. They are meant to work together in a really beautiful way. But certainly every decision that we make is from somewhere, whether current emotion, whether a past emotion, something that happened to you 2 weeks ago, something that happened in your family 10 years ago. It all leads up to where we are today, and all mixes together, to build our perceptions of what's going on. And these influence the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis.
I like that you pointed out that there's nothing wrong there because, and the word process, I feel that even when I get good news, so if it's joy or I'm
Oh
scared, I have to process that first. So
yeah.
I have this saying, and my siblings make fun of me for it, but I always say, I'm gonna have to think about that tomorrow. Like I have
Yeah.
to process it and calm down, whether I'm angry, scared, happy, and then think about it logically. Okay, this is a good thing. This can help, or whatever the
Yeah.
next steps are. But there's all those things mixed in. Like there is an action there. There is action. I can't take action right this moment until I do something, thinking it through. So I love that there's a lot that goes into your thoughts and feelings about money.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to make having thoughts and feelings logical and emotions. I don't want to pathologize that. Like because you have emotion doesn't make you wrong or bad or sick or it just makes you really normal. And I think that that's really important, not to pathologize completely normal behavior, but to do exactly what you did, to be like, a lot of feelings are feeling right now. Let's take a step back. Let's take 24 hours. Let's, count to 10. Let's, maybe try to counterbalance this emotion a little bit. Again, work with it, not deny it, because it's telling you something. And this is important information, for who you are. Just this doesn't necessarily need to be the only emotion or the only information that we interact with. It could be something else as well.
Yes, I feel like this might be more for me now that you just said that, but it's resonating because I do tell myself, I talk to myself probably more
Yeah.
like, okay, hey, this is a good thing. This isn't, or this is bad, but we'll get better. I have another thing that I always say is I have like a time limit to my pity parties. Like there's no
Sure.
blank check for a pity party because it will just then go into other things. And so there's a time limit. So I'm talking to myself, okay, you get your hour, like get it, get frustrated, get
Right.
angry, cry, whatever it is. Like you get 1 hour and then we're moving on to what needs to be done, the next task. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that I'm somewhat normal.
Totally normal. There's an entire what's called experiential therapy. There's an entire branch of therapy that's dedicated to like feel the feelings, but like in a particular like you said, pick an hour, turn on a really sad song, like do the things so that you can experience the feels. And I think it's worth pointing out that like back in the day when people would go to the theater and they would see the sagas, they would see the traumas, like part of that was emoting together, to like get some of those feelings out. I think that that's really important. And again, like it's only become somewhat recent that we're like, oh no, let's suppress these emotions. Like, no, get them out, get them out. However, you got to get them out and know what they are, know where they come from, be able to name them, be able to discuss them with others. Even if that means you got to take 10 minutes for yourself and say, hey, what emotion am I feeling? I think that the processing is really the key. So yeah, you're doing
That
all the
makes
right things.
sense. When you go to conferences or like group things, like a concert, what you're saying is so true because you can feel the energy, like the
Yeah.
joy, or like people are pumped, or just. So I get what
Yeah.
you're saying, but thinking about, yeah, like theater, like that used to be the where you would have to go to get that, and you would be
It
all
was
together. So
cathartic. Yeah.
yeah, so that's very interesting. How does all of this thinking and feeling about money mix when you then are married or in a relationship? How can you, communicate,
Yeah.
share that so people understand, like, hey, I have my feelings here and my thoughts on how we're going to go about this. You have your feelings and thoughts, but they're often not the same process because they've grown
Oh
up
yeah.
differently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, all the things that you just said. Um, the tragedy, if you will, is that most people just are not taught to. If I keep looking over here, it's like snowing outside. It's very beautiful.
Oh, I'm
Um,
jealous.
it's really pretty. So most people are not taught to talk about money. Like, so we don't have good examples of like what a healthy financial discussion looks like. We are often not given the space and time to, take that 10 minutes to ourselves, let alone maybe longer, for even bigger moral, ethical values, dream type questions that have money involved in them. I when I teach my financial planning students about being a financial planner, and we talk a lot about yoga and that, like when you go to yoga class, if you've ever had a teacher say, hey, I'm here to hold space for you, in this hour. If you want to lay in child's pose, if you want to lay in corpse pose, if you want to go through the asana, like all of these things are great, but you got to do what you got to do. I'm just going to hold the space for you to do what you need to do. I think working with a financial planner, working with a financial counselor, working with a CPA, that's just maybe a chatty one. They're harder to find, but they exist. And having somebody hold space for you to say, here is where we're going to talk about money and all the things that come up. And we can do this with our partners, in the sense that we can say, I know that like money date nights is a thing. I think it's an interesting idea. I like it too, where we say, like once a month or once a quarter, we're going to go out together. We're going to have some time away from our kids. We're going to talk about the budget of the month. We're going to talk about what our goals are, or, whatever it is. And that you discuss, finances, but you give it a time and a place. You give it that yoga class where it can have the dedication and people can do what they need to do. But because we don't have a lot of that, and we don't necessarily search it out, because again, we've been taught kind of like not to talk about money. So now you've got these two people, coming together in their union, and who probably don't have any idea what they individually think about money, They don't know what the other one thinks about money because neither one of them actually know what they think about money. And then we're asking them to build a life and make decisions. And oftentimes our finances are, again, wrapped up around everything. Even stuff we don't want it to be influenced in or with, it's often there. And there's lots of research, that shows connections between divorce and money, or, money fights and financial strain, or money issues and overall or emotional or relational wellness. So these ideas are absolutely cyclical and connected. They seem to be, from the research from like Dr. Luter, for example, a colleague of mine, that earlier money fights tend to be like a greater predictor of financial dissatisfaction. So that's both good news and bad news. Like if you're just getting married and you're fighting a lot about money, like let's go talk to somebody. But it's also normal to just have money fights. Like that's a normal thing. Everybody will go through that. And so I think it's less about, instead of trying to say, well, don't fight about money or find ways to not fight about money, that no, it's like fight about it, but fight about it in a practical way. Like don't just keep fighting about the same thing. Like find a way to solve that. Something else will happen. It may even reoccur, and now it comes with like a new situation. But this is not, or does not have to be, an inherently bad thing. It can be something that you commit to working on together. And I think taking the time to discuss how you were raised, where did those lessons come from? How was your partner raised? Where did those lessons come from? What lessons do we want to take forward? What lessons do we want to let go of? What new things do we want to create together? These can all be ways to have that talk. But trying to do it in a more constructive way, which certainly takes more time. That again, like whether it's taking 10 minutes for your own emotion, well, if both partners have to take 10 minutes for their emotion and then come together and talk about it. Yeah, it's not a quick fix, but certainly a super important one. So I don't know if I fully answered your question, but there's a lot that's been written about relationships and money and the connections and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And from what I can tell, early fights seem to be better or greater predictors of trouble in the marriage, but that's not the end of the world. If you're early married and you're having money fights, like go see a financial counselor. Like that, like it doesn't mean anything is going to end. Like you can fix it. No, fights are normal. Try to, if you're having fights later on, find a way that you can decide on a win-win. And this may mean that like you have to list the things that you want, your partner lists the things that they want, and then you look for common denominators and try to create connections of understanding and moving in the same direction. Anytime you can work with a third party, whether it's a marriage counselor or somebody from clergy or a financial professional, these are all great individuals to help not take anybody's side. I know how that works sometimes, but to be the mediator of, what it is that you're, to take care of your coupleship, not necessarily to side with any particular individual. And these financial counselors exist. I'll point out, I know that you have predominantly military group. They exist on bases like military financial counselors are a very common thing. So if this is happening, like there are resources for military persons to get a hold of pretty easily. So that's good.
Along that line, using the word bad or good or healthy or unhealthy habits with money and how people identify. If you're in a relationship, how do you communicate? For example, if I say, well, I'm a saver, but my spouse sees it as we are saving too much money. We're actually not living. We're not, having the quality of life that maybe I would like. Or, I'm, a shopper, but I'm a budget shopper. Well, you're still doing a boatload of shopping, So it's like, how do you have these conversations or because you don't want to, I guess, label it, but that is something that a person is identifying as, but maybe that's not the best behavior.
Yeah. So this is another funny thing that humans do. We do label everything. because it's weird to walking around in a world where you understand nothing. So it helps to, really fast to be able to like categorize stuff. So
Yeah.
if you're doing this, you're not bad. You're human.
Yeah.
But so I don't think that that is inherently bad, but yes, labels can hurt, and labels are very black and white, whereas most people live in the gray. I think the best thing to do, or one thing to do at least in these situations, is to, talk a lot about like what you're trying to effectively do, or, how it is that these things make you feel, or, slow down, like individually, not necessarily processing together at this point, but slow down your kind of thinking or ideas, like where did that spending habit come from? Like what hole is it trying to fill, or what value is it connected to for you? And, would there be a different way to do it? Is that the only way to do it? Is there a variety of ways, that could be, typically once you understand the cat, then we know that there's lots of ways to skin it. And so it's just sort of, which is such a terrible thing to say for cats, but I'm a dog person, I guess. But I think I think that taking time, to examine, and I'm happy to share a story about like even in my own life. So I've done a lot of therapy work. I've done a lot of financial therapy work. And in a class that I took a long time ago, so what happened before I took the class? So I was I was dating my now husband. And at the time, we decided to buy a house together before we got married, or an apartment in San Diego, which is like cost of a house. So we were getting ready to do this, and he's like, I feel like because we're going to own this house together, and we're planning on getting married, we should combine bank accounts. And I was like, I remember standing on the other side of, at the time, our 800 square foot apartment, and I could feel like the rage from my toes, like climbing up my body, and me just thinking, I'm going to murder this guy, because I instantly felt he's trying to control my money. It was not, and so at that time, I was just like, I will never share a bank account with you. I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, I can't believe you would try to control me, was very angry. Boom, out of nowhere. Months later, years later, I'm taking a class. It was called Money and Relationships at Kansas State University, where we have a certification actually in financial therapy. And I had to do money history. And so I interviewed like my grandmother, and at the time my great grandmother and my mother, about their money lives. And, lo and behold, there is this story starting back at, because my great-great-grandmother wasn't around, but I'm sure she had something too. But my great-grandmother, she had to hide money in the house. My great-grandfather drank, and so he would a lot of times drink the money away. So she would have to hide it in order to take care of all of her kids. Then fast forward to my grandmother, my grandfather divorced her and pretty much took everything. So like she had to hang on to the money. And then my mom, she being raised by these two women, was very individual with her money, and would always say to me, like, you need to have your own money. Like, you need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of yourself. And it wasn't, that's not a bad thing to tell a female, like, hey, you need to be able to take care of yourself financially. But for me, unknowing these things, but watching my family's behavior, this was like a warning, like, take care of yourself or else, So now here I am, 25 years old, standing in the room with my future husband, and all that's running through my head is take care of yourself, take care of yourself, take care of yourself. And he didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that. I instantly, as I was writing this paper, went back to that moment and thought, oh my God, like that's where this is coming from, and at the time it was a money fight. My husband, his family's not like that. They're very open, and they don't, worry about things like that in that way. And so he took it as that I just didn't trust him, and that was hurtful. And I took it as he was trying to manipulate me, and that made me mad. And lo and behold, it was just like his history and my history, generational history, leading up to this point where, bam, there's a fight. So I don't know if it would be good advice to interview your family about your money, but you will learn some stuff. And then it's not even, I'll tell you now, I don't share a bank account with my husband. It's a decision that we made together. It just makes me feel safer, but he at least knows that it's just me and my weirdness and has nothing to do with him or me trusting him. I just need it for my own security. And now we can have a more constructive conversation because it's not these things we don't understand, just working back here in our lower brain. Like I have awareness of what was before, I'm conscious of what was unconscious. And being conscious of what was once unconscious, I can now make decisions about it in a different way. And I can explain it to other people so that they can understand. And I think that awareness gives us real power and more options. And so taking the time to really explore, what do you believe? What do you think? What is driving this? And also, again, without trying to label it, like you're just trying to understand. A lot of things that happened to us when we were young, we had no control over that. So, and we survived, to get to this point. Like, I truly do not believe in like maladaption. I just believe in adaption. We're here and we survived through all that stuff. And this is where we're at, so think about it, delve into it, and then decide from this more informed place, from this aware place, from this conscious place. What do I want to do? How helpful is this in moving forward? How not helpful is this in moving forward? It's not always a perfectly black or white answer where like, oh, I'm just going to leave this. I teach my students that it's a lot like a bucket of water, that when you start going back, the bucket, starts filling up. And eventually it gets pretty damn heavy and it can be quite cumbersome, to carry around. The water is sloshing everywhere. But the minute you share that bucket with someone else that's safe, it gets much easier to carry. You can also decide, because now you have awareness of the bucket, I'm just going to pour this sucker out. Or, hey, maybe my bucket is not so bad. Maybe I just need to sit down and make soup. Like there are many ways to deal with your metaphorical bucket, but fill the bucket up, understand. You got to start there first. And I think that is something that we can do, with our partners. And again, if it helps to have sort of that third party, that's great too. But learning about yourself, people read self-help books all the time. There's nothing wrong with kind of getting some self-help related to money and, how we feel about it and what we were taught about it and what we weren't taught about it. And to not label those things, but just accept those things how they are. And again, sometimes labels can help, but also labels can be hurtful to other people. I think a really good communication style people always ask why. Okay, so it's called nonviolent communication. Then people notoriously say, well, what is violent communication? It came from the 60s, very like hippie group. Don't worry about the fact that it's called nonviolent communication. But if you want to Google it, that's what it's called. And it has 4 steps. And in talking with your partner about something that is like bringing up a lot of emotion, nonviolent communication can be very helpful in that it is very structured. And if both people agree to the structure, then it helps people to move forward. So the first step is to essentially state your feelings. And you have to use an I statement to do it. So you can't say, well, you made me feel sad. You just say, I feel sad. Second step is the observation. So what happened related to, you feeling sad. So I feel sad. I wanted to have this conversation about money. I wanted to be able to be open And what I'm observing is that there is some distance. Okay? Then it moves on to asking for a request. What I would like is for the space to close and for us to be able to have what could be a vulnerable conversation, but a conversation nonetheless about our finances. The last step is the actual need. You're going to say what you need. And so what I would need in order to get, one step closer to where we want to go, I would like for us to have an evening once a month where we talk about financial things for 2 hours. Then your partner can respond to that need. No, I can't do that. It can only be an hour. Okay. But at least now we are negotiating and we're doing it in a way that is moving us forward and not just getting stuck in the pain, but we're both able to express, what we felt, what we observed, the request and the need.
I think in there, it's so important what you said about, well, I took it as knowing yourself, like knowing why you are the way that you are, but not just knowing that, taking ownership of that to say, hey, this is why I feel this way, wanting my own checking account or my own money in some way. It has nothing to do with you. This is actually to help us avoid problems in the future, because if I don't have this, it's going to give me anxiety or it's going to scare me or whatever. I'm not going to be happy. And this is why. And then understanding whoever you're in a relationship with, like, this is why you are the way you're open. And, it is hurtful to you if, but if we communicate, but knowing who you are and owning that part of the conversation, I think is helpful, instead of the other person trying to get the point across. No, this is what you're doing. This is who you are. But if you're not seeing that, then that's, half the battle is right there, just trying to prove the other person's point instead of you being able to take a little bit of ownership.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to people's thoughts and feelings, and it's the beginning of the year, and setting goals, how can people go beyond just setting them and talking about them versus achieving them, taking action and making them a reality versus like, okay, I really want to try to do this. I went through this smoking cessation class in the military, and the only thing I remember is the more you try, the more chances of success you have. Like, you might fail one time, but if you keep going, you have a greater chance of success. So how can people, when it comes to money, get over just talking about it and making it happen?
Yeah. I like SMART goals. It's an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And I think that these sort of goals, help make some of those bigger goals more tangible, and so not just what is this goal way out here, but what are you going to do about it in the next month? What are you going to do about it? And then after you achieve that initial step, whatever you wanted to do, then moving on to creating another SMART goal for maybe the next 2 months, and sort of continue along this process that, very few things, especially financial, compound interest is amazing, but compound interest takes time. And so I think that just having patience with yourself, recognizing that there really are no get-rich-quick schemes, there's not that, and that it does take a lot of work. Anytime you develop a new habit, anytime you develop a new way of thinking or being, this takes an extensive amount of emotional work, time, and we talked about emotions earlier and how helpful they are in like trying to get stuff done, trying to ask yourself, to generate some of those positive emotions, like who's going to be proud of you when this is done, when you get this thing done. If you don't do it, like what would be the negative consequences of that? You mentioned smoking. There's been some interesting research done on what's called the trans-theoretical model of change and sort of like why people quit smoking. And a lot of times it's not for themselves. They'll quit smoking because they want their kids to be healthier, or they'll quit smoking because they want to spend more time with their grandkids, or they quit smoking because, they enjoy being social and a lot of bars don't allow it anymore. These are not internal reasons to quit. These are external reasons, like relationship reasons to quit, which I've always found, to be kind of fascinating. And I think that money can be similarly. Oh, well, my partner will be proud of me. Well, my kids will be safe. To generate some of these ideas for yourself about people that will be proud, or, the good things that will happen, to help, to think of like that. This is like a teeter-totter of like pros and cons for whether or not you change. And you may not be able to let go of some of the cons. Like, money is kind of confusing. Things can be kind of tough. And that's probably not going to go away. So then how can we stack the deck on the positive side? If it's just about counterbalancing, stacking the deck on the positive side. And this goes back to even just like simple ideas like counting your blessings. I don't know if you guys have a mom like mine, but she loves to tell me that. Yeah. And, but that's what it is. It's like, yes, this bad thing has happened or this frustrating thing has happened. But if you take 10 minutes and count your blessings, so yeah, like I wish that I didn't feel this way about my money, but I recognize that I do. And, here maybe are some ways that I can counterbalance it. You may never let go of that. I've never let go of the fact that I need to have, like, if I need to cut and run and go to Mexico, I have to be able to do it. I'm never going to let go of that. But, I can continue to have money dates with my husband. We work with a financial planner. We work with a CPA. We talk about our finances. My finances are open to him at any time. Same thing with his. It is not that we are shut off. In fact, we try to find a whole bunch of more ways to talk about it so that we can remain separate but aware.
Yeah, I like the talking about it part. This kind of is a more specific question, talking about feelings and thoughts. For military spouses, there's a lot of inconsistent income because of un- and underemployment. And some of that's by choice. It's just not good timing, deployments or mobilizations for a military spouse to be working. But I can say, for myself, I have lots of thoughts and feelings on my earnings based as a military spouse. How can military couples manage their money better when you have kind of this emotional thought baggage that comes with being a military spouse?
Gosh, as a military spouse myself that struggles with that, I think probably the most human thing I could say is that I'm still trying to figure it out too. It's a really hard thing, where there is no perfect one-way answer. There is a lot of conversations, with your partner where you're being vulnerable, where you're able to talk about the frustrations that you have or celebrate, some of the joy that you have from not, having to worry about this or that. It doesn't always have to be a negative thing. I think that, so military families are not the only ones that kind of deal with crazy fluctuations in their finances. Artists and pro athletes deal with this too. Obviously, at probably slightly different extremes, but we are not the only ones that kind of deal with that. And I think that some of the things that help some of these other groups, is to try to look back maybe over a greater period of time, like 4 or 5 years, and to find what is sort of the baseline, like what do we think we can secure? And then, when times are good, to save a little bit, and when times are not as good, if hopefully you have the savings there then to spend a little bit to get through those times. I also think that being able, I think the biggest thing is being able to talk to each other though, during those hard times, because, I've been without my partner for, well, I'm sure as many people listening, we were separated for almost 2 years during COVID. He went to a place called Diego Garcia for a year in the early part of our marriage. I only probably in the past 5 years have had a more consistent income myself, but that's only after getting a PhD and having people be like, oh yeah, maybe we'll continue to keep her employed. She's useful.
We'll keep her around.
Yeah, prior to that though, they were like, "Oh, you're only going to be here for 2 years, or so we'll pay you, but like $8, or or we won't hire you at all." And it did a lot, to it was hard, for my self-esteem. It was hard for my identity. It was also boring, like, you don't have anywhere to go. You don't have anything to do. And so you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll go shopping, or I guess I'll go meet my friend for lunch, or, because like you can only clean the house and walk around the block, so many times before you're just like, I'm going to go nuts. And this was even before I had children, and now having children is like a whole nother mix. There is, whether we like it or not, one of the best ways to spend money to make yourself happy is on other people. And so it does not surprise me that families, spend all kinds of money on their kids and because it makes us happy. And if you're already bored and you're lonely and, you're able to, or not even necessarily lonely, but like maybe you're just totally content being with your kids, but that doesn't mean that you don't want to spend money on them and go do fun things. Like you totally do. So instead of being like, oh, well, you're the spender, or, like to just say, hey, like this is why this is happening. And like, let's talk about it. And is there a budget that we can set that would be appropriate or feel safe, for everybody involved? Just recognizing that this money is going to be spent and it's being spent for a legitimate reason. But to know what that is, as partners, so that, whoever is more of the spender or whoever is more of the saver or whatever, that both people are informed, no matter what. So I wish I had a perfect answer. I oftentimes feel like as a military spouse, like you're constantly walking around in a world of, do you know what the trolley problem is if I say that?
No.
Okay. There was a philosopher, she's an ethicist philosopher. Her name is Philippa Foot, and she developed the trolley problem like a long time ago. And the trolley problem is that like you're standing by the switch, and the trolley is going down the way, and down the road there's like 5 people that are somehow not seeing the trolley and they're on the track and it can hit them. Or there's one person, if you flip the switch, there's one person on this other side that could get hit. And so you have to decide, as the person by the switch box, who are you gonna let die? And I know that sounds really terrible, but it's like, my family and I are about to go to Italy. Over in Italy, my husband will be working to support the 2 wars, that are going on, which is horrible. It's like the 5 people, yeah. But also when my husband's not there, my family hurts too. And that's like the one person. But in the dilemma, you're, so like maybe it's my kid, and so you're trying to decide like which flip do I make? Do I, like you don't know what to do. And so walking around in a world where you constantly have these like ethical dilemmas going on in the back of your brain, on top of all the other decisions that you have to make, it's exhausting and it's really hard and it's deeply emotional. And I don't want to underscore that. Maybe other military spouses are better at it than I am, but I very much struggle with taking care of the world and taking care of my world. And so I use the trolley example, or that's probably the best ethical dilemma that I've ever come across that probably illustrates how I feel on a regular basis. And when you're constantly calculating in the back of your mind, whether you're calculating about your budget, or you're calculating about your time, or you're calculating about your relationship, or you're calculating about your kids, or you're calculating about the move, or you're calculating about the fact that your partner's finally coming home. And although that feels really great, all the life that you've built while they're gone, is about to just get blown up again. This makes even simple decisions infinitely harder. And I don't want to forget that for your audience and for our lives in particular, just how difficult that extra step makes just about everything we do.
Yeah, there's a lot of decisions that are having to be made all the time, and you're right. Like, it's the lesser of two evils. Like, am I going to give my kids a cake pop? They're going to get sugar, but it's going to make them happy, and they're happy, so I can have a moment to breathe because I've been with my kids, for 24/7 for like 6 months, or like spending money, with a service member coming home. I always say that there's this "I deserve it" game. Well, I've been gone. I deserve to get this thing. And so there's all this juggling, especially too about your emotions and your thoughts through the whole thing. So I love that. There's no perfect answer for how to handle that. I think everybody knows their situation best and really just has to make some decisions, and they're the ones that have to live with it, but it's based off of their unique situation and their own emotions and all of those things that you talked about, like going back to your past and money. And it's a big maze.
Yeah.
You're trying to get out of
It's a big maze with new walls going up all the time. Yeah.
Something out of a movie. Well, I want to ask you a couple of quick random questions I ask everyone. First off, what is one resource or tool that you use that makes your life easier or work?
The internet. Let's see, one tool. My husband and I have a shared Google Calendar. I know that sounds really lame, but I do have a job that takes me a lot of places, and he is always, doing his job, which takes him a lot of places. And sometimes just having that shared calendar for, getting a kid's doctor's appointment on, so that like he doesn't schedule something that interrupts my work, or I don't schedule something that interrupts his work, really does help. And it hasn't even been that long since we've been doing that. But it has helped. So kind of a simple one.
I need to do that as my kids are getting older, and one's getting ready to, drive. That's something, actually, if they are scheduling things and it is going to kind of go against our calendar. So I feel like that's where my life is moving to. So that's a good tool.
Yeah. It's nice. Yeah.
What is your favorite book right now, or your favorite book of all time?
This is not very exciting, but it is literally what I'm reading right now. It's like a textbook, basically, on logotherapy. I really enjoy it. I don't know. Viktor Frankl was the father of logotherapy. I don't know if anybody knows who Viktor Frankl is, but
and I don't know what logotherapy is either.
Well, he was a Holocaust survivor. Viktor Frankl was. And he became a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and he works, what he noticed through what he went through, but also just like what people were working through, was more about having meaning in their life, and the importance of having meaning, and what meaning does for people, and what a lack of meaning does to people. And so his theory and a lot of the techniques and stuff that he uses and has taught, he's no longer with us, but at the time, relate to some of like these existential ideas about what am I here for, and what is this meaning, and what are my values. And like when people are lost with those questions, then logotherapy is a way to get back to that. And I really love Viktor Frankl's work, and I think that when things do feel really crazy, it can be helpful to turn to resources like that and try to figure out, as far as I can tell, one of the things that makes meaning is loving other people. So that's a thing that we're all pretty good at, and if we can lean into that a little bit more, this tends to give great meaning for people in their lives.
That sounds really good. I'll definitely put that in the show notes for everybody, link it up so they can check it out. Okay, now it is time for my favorite part of the podcast, which is game time. And today, in honor of the new year, we are going to be playing New Year's resolution trivia. So I found a survey done by Forbes Health and OnePoll about Americans' attitudes towards New Year's resolutions, setting them and the goals, and it is very interesting. And it's been done over a few years. So, but this one, they did survey people at the end of 2023 in October and about what they're planning for 2024. So the questions are based off that. So I'm going to give you 5 of them. If you get 3 out of the 5 correct, you get bragging rights that you won game time on the MILMO show. It's a really big deal.
Okay.
I'm sure you want to put that on your CV.
All right.
Okay. All right. Number 1. What percentage of people set the resolution to improve in their work? So they want to be better at work in their New Year's resolution. Was it A, 10% of people polled, B, 5%, or C, 3%?
I would say 10.
It was actually only 3%. That's what I thought. That's what I put there. I was like, dang. Workers are trying to be better. Okay. Yeah. Number 2. What is the average number of New Year's resolutions people have set for 2024? Oh, wait.
I would say 2.
Wait. Let me give you the...
Oh, you have to give me the answers.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Is it A, 3 point... No, I'm sorry. I'm giving you the wrong... Is it 1A? I'm sorry. Just let me...
Is it A, 1?
Yes. Is it A, 1? Is it B, 3? Or C, 4?
I'll go with 3.
That is correct. An average of 3 resolutions people are setting for 2024. I'm feeling below average because I haven't set one.
I haven't set one either.
I'm glad. We can be below average together.
I feel like you get to be exempt, and that it's very rare that you know what your life is going to be. And so, like, my New Year's resolution might be to, like, just survive as elegantly as possible. I don't need to plan anything because stuff's just going to happen to me. So I don't know.
Survive 2024. Survive 2024 is my goal. Okay. Number 3. What is the top New Year's resolution people have set? Is it A, drinking less alcohol, B, improved fitness, or C, improved finances?
Let's go with finances.
No, it is actually B, improved fitness. But improved finances was second. It was at 38%. 48% of people want to improve their fitness, and only 3% of people want to drink less alcohol. Also thought very telling, this survey. Okay, number 4. What is the average of how long a resolution typically lasts? Is it A, 3.74 months, B, 2.23 months, or C, 1.57 months?
C.
It's actually A, 3.74 months, which I thought was...
Make it through first quarter, that's fine. Okay.
Yes. Okay, and the last one. What day is known as Quitter's Day? I thought this was a very interesting part of this survey. Is it for people to quit their New Year's resolutions? Is it A, the second Friday of January, B, the last Friday of January, or C, the first Friday of February?
I think that. Remember, it went 3 months or so it has to be a little bit further out.
That was the average, but they say people have labeled the second Friday of January as Quitter's Day. I guess quitters quit early.
Fair. Okay,
yes. Well, that was the game. I'm sorry you don't get bragging rights that you won on the MILMO show. But it's about
I'm
people.
I'm not particularly good at that, apparently, so it's okay.
Well, people are rogues, so you just can't guess what people will do.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I appreciate you being on this show. Can you tell everybody listening where they can learn more about you and what you're up to?
I am on Twitter and I am on LinkedIn. Those are probably the two places to find me, although I'm not particularly social media savvy. I write fairly often for a blog called kitsis.com, or The Nerd's Eye View. It is a financial planning blog, so you can go and learn about finances. I'm often writing about the emotional stuff. I do, thankfully, get invited to lots of fun podcasts. I have an awkwardly spelled name. So typically, if you do just like Google, what is Meghaan Lurtz doing? You will find out. So I'm not super hard to find if you want to find me. And I try to do things like this fairly often. And I teach at a lot of different universities. So easy to find if you need me for something.
Yes, well, I'll be sure to put links in the show notes for everybody so it will be easy for them to find you. Thank you so much, Meghaan. I really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.